Okay, everybody. Welcome to the Government Efficiency and Transparency Ad Hoc Committee meeting, March 13th, the year of our Lord, 2025. Do we have any speaker cards at all? Anybody has registered to speak? No. But not counting the presentations, obviously. No. Nope.
I don't know if the clerk of the board has any speaker cards.
Okay. So in any case, in an abundance of caution, we'll open it up to a reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard if anybody would like to speak at this time that is not making a presentation. Okay, so now we will close the reasonable opportunity to be heard after Jeopardy music shows that nobody has chosen to speak. We are closing the public opportunity to be heard. Okay, Madam County Attorney, we'd like to go ahead and set the agenda, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are two additions to the preliminary agenda. That is item 1G1 supplement and item 1G1 supplement number 2, the fiscal impact statement and the social equity statement respectively to the ordinance relating to the rules of procedure of the Board of County Commissioners, which is item 1G1 on your agenda. And with that, a motion to set the agendas in order.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Regalado. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect it has been approved unanimously. Now, would anybody like to bifurcate any of the items? Commissioner
please.
Cohen-Higgins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I need to bifurcate 2B, please, for a quick amendment.
2B.
Stacy, 2C for a quick amendment.
Okay, 2B and 2C. Okay, you guys got that? All right. So, can we move the balance of the agenda with the exception of obviously those two items and 1E and 1G1? It's moved by Commissioner Regalado. Is there a second? Second. Okay, there's a motion and a second by Commissioner Regalado. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, all in favor, say aye. 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 Okay. Let the record reflect it passes unanimously. So, okay, we can now go ahead and take the bifurcated items.
Would you like to start with the public hearing item, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, let's start with the public hearing item. Why don't we do 1E1 first? 1G1, I'm sorry.
1G1 is a public hearing item. It's an ordinance relating to the rules of procedure of the Board of County Commissioners, amending Section 2-1 of the Code of Miami-Dade County, Florida, providing for electronic delivery of agenda items to commissioners, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. And if you want, we can open up the public hearing at this time.
Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak on this item, please come on up and give us your opinion in a short, succinct, and concise manner, which is defined as 2 minutes. And since we don't have Jeopardy music, but it already played in my mind, nobody's come up to the podium to speak. Let the record reflect that nobody has chosen to speak at this time, so public hearing is closed on this item. And any discussion on this item? If there's none, then we'd entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Regalado. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins. Do we need a roll call on this?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins,
4.
Commissioner Regalado,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cabrera, Chairman Bermudez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Now let's go to the bifurcated items. I believe 2B was the first one, correct?
Yes, and for clarification, that was also 1G1 supplement and 1G1 supplement number 2 that were also adopted.
Correct. Correct. So 2B, I believe Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, is that you or Commissioner Regalado? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The attorneys have a motion, not a motion, an amendment to read on 2B, please.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins moves to amend item 2B to update references within implementing order number 3-38, the master procurement implementing order, to the county mayor or county mayor's designee's threshold of delegated authority for the award and rejection of competitive contracts to be consistent with sections 2-8.1 and 2-8.1.6 of the Code of Miami-Dade County, including ordinance number 24-122. 122, correct.
Okay. Are there any questions of Commissioner Cohen-Higgins? Commissioner Regalado?
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I know we've talked about this before. My only concern with it is when the departments have to communicate with other departments in order to make purchases, right? So a lot of the software issues that we have, a lot of times the department is using a particular software, but that RFP, gracias, and that procurement technically is under IT. So my question is, in terms of accountability, right? When it's a multi-department purchase, how does that play out? Like who is in charge, right? Because obviously this is about accountability, right? So instead of saying administration, you failed, who is in charge of signaling that there may be a procurement issue?
That's a great question. I don't know if anybody has an answer for that. Yeah, Namita maybe.
Hello, Namita. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Commissioner. Namita Upal, Chief Procurement Officer. Commissioner, the way we are, actually, this is a great question. The way we are set up today is the contracts are in the Inform system.
Yes.
So there's a cache of contract, which I'll share the numbers, like about 1,200 contracts that are managed or overseen by my staff. So I'm going to use those as an example. For those contracts, my staff is responsible to notify the department that has the allocation or the contract manager of that contract, hey, your contract is going to be up in 2 years, you need to start working on it. You need to start working on the scope of work, you need to start giving us document, or let's work together to prepare the RFP. But then there are certain instances where there are contracts that are residing or managed by departments.
Right.
In those instances, those departments are responsible for making sure that they start the re-procurement process, or at least they start thinking about what are they going to do when the contract expires. So for each contract, there is a department responsible.
Right. So I say that because one of the things that we've done recently is say that all the procurement has to go through Informs. And although Informs gives everybody here a stomachache, the idea is that if it all lives in one place, it will be easier to kind of harness that information. So I think Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, in order, I think these ideas are great, but we need to be really specific about the effectuation of it. So what I would recommend is a consideration of somehow getting notification of that process at some point, right? So at some point, all the contracts that Namita has, when she sends it to the department, right? That should go somewhere. And then the departments, that part, you got to take it department by department. That's a little bit more complicated. But at least for the stuff that's in her shop, once she signals the department, I think that's where we could be effective, in the sense that once that information goes out, then that should be the notification, right? That this needs to start. The clock has started, and the county commission knows that the clock has started. Now, if those departments do not respond, then it's kind of on them because they didn't do it. Now, for the ones that are within the purview of the department and the legacy systems, my concern is the legacy systems, because I know the legacy systems get jammed up. Because, for example, there's times, Namita, we've talked about this. Let's say that there's like a change in the software. That change may happen in the middle of that contractual term, and all of a sudden you have to do an update or you have to buy something, and then it comes to us and we're like, why is this so late? Well, this started right when we got the notification. So I don't know if we want to consider something specifically for the legacy systems, although I want to get rid of the legacy systems, but I think that it's separate. When you start looking at this stuff, like in different little silos, the legacy systems are a little bit more complicated. The ones that go to the department are a little bit more complicated, but I think the ones that Namita gets, that she sends out the memo to the department, I think this item could meet that very, very well. So that's my 2 cents on that. Namita? Yeah.
So, Commissioner, one of the directives and initiatives that the mayor has asked to look into is standardization of the different processes that exist today, because we are a central department, but then there are procurement professionals in all county departments. So how do we make sure in the end we all work together towards one central procurement supply chain organization of the county. So we're working on different ways to figure out, okay, there are procurement professionals here. How do we make sure they're also following the same rules and regulations? They're following the standard processes. And if we are able to implement that fully, your concern about the contracts that are residing or being managed could be addressed through that way. So, but we're actively working on that. It's not easy. It's a large county. It's a cultural shift.
Of course.
But we're working on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Namita.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
Thank you, Namita, and thank you, Commissioner, for those comments. This item is simply reaffirming an existing reso that we passed in 2023, 658-23. And the reason that it's necessary is despite the passage of that resolution, since then we're still seeing contracts come to us well after the expiration of their term. And so I said, what's going on here? There's already a policy in place that is set to prevent this from happening. And when you do a deep dive, you realize, and what unfortunately happens is that Namara is always the one that gets called up to the podium, and she's always the one that takes the heat from this dais when things seem to be coming to us at a late stage where we complain about not wanting to be placed in a position to rubber stamp. But when you go through step by step of our procurement process, you realize that her department is where the procurement is taking place, but it is absolutely necessary for her to have coordination and cooperation from our department directors in order for her to do her job. And so if she is not receiving full scopes of these works, of the contracts that are coming due in the 2 years, she can't put it out for a new procurement. Absent a detailed scope, it becomes impossible to actually put it out and have the RFP process commence in the 2 years in advance in order to avoid the situation that we're in time and time again. So this is simply sending a message to our department directors, hey, we all need to work together. We need to pay attention to these resolutions. We need to pay attention to these mandates so that our procurement department is able to do what it is that they need to do in a timely manner. And, oh, by the way, don't just give us a check the box type of scope of work describing, in one sentence. No, do the deep dive well in advance so that she can actually utilize that scope of work to actually prepare and put out the RFP. So this is just signaling, we need you all to take this seriously. Again, only with the eye towards this board, always having to repeat the same thing over and over regarding these late filed items. And so the amendment that was just read on the floor simply has this item taking the opportunity to update the implementing order that was outdated and didn't reflect some changes that had come about since its recent passage. So hopefully that explanation provides some further clarity. And any suggestions, Commissioner, that you want to recommend regarding streamlining or centralizing or how we are actually using our technical systems to make that process more streamlined and seamless, I'm absolutely open to. And honestly, whatever our Director of Procurement recommends that would be helpful towards that end, I'm certainly in agreement of adopting within this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Regalado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I understand, obviously I read the item, I understand the issue of the scope, and I think that's great, but when the item was originally passed, and that's why I was asking Namita about the process, I think there's several, this breaks down in several places, right? So this one now is dealing with the scope piece, but I think it breaks down with the notification. So I think it breaks down a lot sooner than you actually even get to the scope. So we already have systems that could help with that. So for example, if Namita sends out information to the departments that there's certain contracts that they need to start working on, because of these deadlines, the chairmen of the committees that oversee those departments could get that notification from Namita, right? And then it's on you to talk to your departments, right? And to make sure that those RFPs are moving, because at the end of the day, it's going to be on you when the RFP comes out late, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it where you can bring different people in. I understand, that this is signaling again to the department directors, but my concern with that is, and while I know that it gets jammed up on the scope side, because we've talked about that a million times, I think it gets jammed up before then. I think that the notification needs to be received within a timely manner so that you don't run and just throw whatever scope at it so that you can check the box, to your point, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins. I think that there needs to be a series of checks there so that there's different people accountable at different points, right? So Namita's doing her job. She's sending out the email, And the directors are like, okay, but if they sit on it for 5 months and then send her like a boilerplate scope because they're in a hurry and they don't want to get hit with the deadline, that doesn't really solve our problem, right? So what I'm saying is some accountability when it goes out. And then obviously the issue of the scope is important, but I think that there can also be kind of a check-in by the committee chairs, like, hey, by the way, got this list, where are you? Where are you on this?
Let me just say two things. Obviously, I think both of you are kind of saying the same thing, which is reiterating that we don't want things to occur in a silo, so to speak. But the only thing that's disconcerting, Commissioner Regalado, of what you've said, is that truthfully, I don't think it should come down to the committee heads only. It should be the way the system works automatically, which is part of what this committee's responsibility is going to be. And we'll get into that when we get into technology, and there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about technology, because it makes no sense that we have some of these that a year and a half after passing a resolution, actually a year and a half, maybe two, almost 2 years after passing a resolution, we're still having some of these issues. Because to me, logically, whether it's NAMIDA or the department directors, if that's a problem, then it's incumbent upon the administration and incumbent upon those responsible to make sure that it works. I'm not saying that we shouldn't get that notification. I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that the easiest way to streamline and make sure that these things are effective which is really the purpose of this committee in large part, is to really get that efficiency and effectiveness squared away. I don't know if there's a friendly amendment that maybe would be considered, or if not, then I think we can always come back. But this is just reiterating something that as I understand it from Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, and we have had stuff pop up after 23, after we passed this resolution. And that is a little bit disconcerting, because you would have figured, hey, they're saying this on the dais, pay attention, so.
But to your point, Mr. Chair, I think we have been changing the processes. So for example, now things are on informs. Like they were to Namida's point, it's getting more centralized. It was very decentralized. So it's getting more centralized. And the idea of putting all the procurement on informs puts everybody going to the same place, right? So they were all going to different places. So even tracking these procurements down was a little bit challenging. So now that we're changing these systems, I think it is going to get easier and easier. My point is to bring in different points of accountability. That's all. Because I just feel like a lot of times we're just playing gotcha, and nothing against that, but what's the point? How many times has this happened to us before? And I get everyone's point, like the system should work a particular way, but clearly the system is not working a particular way. And these directors are dealing with a bunch of other things, right? So I'm not making excuses for anyone, but at the same time, you could see where something gets complicated or something slips by, right? So the more people that you have involved in the accountability piece, the less likely it is, because you can have someone go on maternity leave or on paternity leave. You could have someone leave. You could have someone on a selection committee, that it sit on their desk while the deadline was passing. So these are all things that can happen within this system. And what I'm saying is we should consider bringing in some accountability points. That's all.
I don't think there's any question about that. I think that we're all in agreement with it. And hopefully by the time we finish with this committee, there'll be a lot of additional things that'll take place. But if there's nothing else, then at this point, we got to move on this item one way or the other.
Happy to move it, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Regalado. All in favor, say aye. 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 Any nays? Passes unanimously. Now, item 2C.
So item 2C, we've been working with staff on why these negotiations take so much time. And 2C and 2D are a direct response to that. So, but we wanted to amend section 2. I don't know if the county attorney wants to read it, or I'm going to read it. Who's going to read it? Me?
I don't know.
Okay.
wanna read-
All right. So here's the deal. So what we're looking at is, the idea is we're including the complete contract, and we're saying when someone respond to the RFP, if they have issues with particular terms, this is your moment, right? We shouldn't be negotiating for 8 or 9 months. This is your moment. And by the way, that goes with the administration too, because I don't want the administration adding terms also. If we approve an RFP, those are the material terms. We are not changing this thing 5 months in, 6 months in, 7 months in. When you look at how long it takes to negotiate these agreements, whether it's the RFPs, for goods and services, or even the housing ones, like we need to streamline the negotiation piece. So that's what the two items are doing. What we were talking with the administration about, and we can work with the attorneys so that it goes to the full board, is we want to direct the mayor to include a complete contract in any RFP solicitation, which allows little to no negotiation or modification of terms. Specifically, I don't want it to be a boilerplate contract. I want it to be the actual contract, right? We know what we want, right? We want it to be the actual contract. And to the extent that certain terms can be negotiated, we don't want them to be material terms, right? So we're not negotiating material terms. That doesn't make any sense. If that's the case, then the RFP was not written correctly. It is in the best interest of the county, I think, to provide a complete contract with the solicitation so that if people have an issue, speak now or forever hold your peace. And that way, if they do have an issue, that is part of the selection committee, because unfortunately, we do have some folks that they just get through the selection process. And then at that point, they're negotiating something completely different. And when you look at the final agreement, this looks nothing like what was presented to the committee. So what's the point of the selection committee if you're going to have things morph in such a way?
Commissioner Cabral.
So, what I'd be curious is, does this include like an acceptance of the contract as well as part of bidding on the RFP? Like they reviewed it, they accepted, so after they win, they can't come back and say, now I want to change these things. And you could be like, no, you already signed.
Right. So that gets into, the attorney's determination of noncompliance, right? So if they have an issue with a term, they have to, in the response to the RFP, say, I take issue with this term, right? I take issue with this material term, whether that is the timing, an extension, right? This is your moment. That's in the item, right? And that should be considered by the selection committee, right? And by the way, if there's 4 people that respond to the RFP and all 4 of them have the same complaint, then clearly there's something wrong with the RFP, right? So I'm not saying that that's going to foreclose you, from winning that, but let's know upfront what the problems are.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to know from our procurement department whether we currently send out contracts as part of all of our RFPs or whether or not that practice is not being engaged at all currently.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. Commissioner, as a part of the all goods and services RFP, the draft contract is included. The county attorney will not allow me to put an RFP out without a contract, and I don't want to put a contract out without the without RFP, without the contract. And as a part of our proposal process, the companies are allowed to identify, okay, these are the terms that they have issues or concerns with. Over the years, we realized that we had to modify the language to allow for those flexibilities. So they can tell us the terms that they have objections with. Selection committee does take that into account. Let's say the selection committee evaluated and the number 1 company has issues with 5 terms. Then the negotiating team at that point can look into those terms and make sure none of those terms can materially alter the contract. And the terms that are in favor of the county, let's say we asked them to do the work in 10 days, but they said, I can do the work in 5 days. Oh, good. So that's not something they offered to us, we're accepting it. But if we asked for 10 days and they're saying we want to do in 20 days, and if we allow that, that's a problem. So I think the process itself allows for letting the companies let us know up front the exceptions or concerns they have. However, Commissioner's point is well taken, that it does take longer sometimes. And those are the complex RFPs, the IT RFPs or systems RFPs, where when we get those proposals, they're so complicated, it takes us time to validate what they're proffering can be delivered and can be accepted. So it does take, sort of those ones, it does take longer. I wouldn't deny it.
So my point to the committee is, one thing is may and other thing is shall, right? So this is, and by the way, there are some folks who play games with this, right? So I think there's some good actors that upfront reveal what the issues with the terms are, some not so much, right? Because it really is a negotiation tactic. I'm happy, and I'll work with Namita, in order to give you a bit of a carve out for the complex ones. I totally agree with you. Some of them can be very, very specific. I just think that as we push staff to get these awards to us faster, we have to somehow limit the negotiation process. And the way to limit the negotiation process is to tie everyone to the response in a way that provides us with a little bit more accountability.
Let me just say one thing, if I may. Namada, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, or maybe the county attorneys do. The way I read this resolution, it still has the exception. The county mayor's designee to provide justification why it is in the best interest of the county to not include a complete contract. So
For the complex ones, but they have to tell us why.
Okay, I got you. That's fine, but it's in there, so I'm supportive of the item because of that, because the complex ones are different than, say, but I think it's still a good concept to do it with the complex ones as much as you can.
Agree.
Because in general, what you don't want is, people coming back, as has been happening in the past, months later saying, well, I can't do it for that price because of X, Y, and Z. So I read it as the language is already there that does permit that. Now the question of, I think in concept, it's a good thing. It should be included. And if it's not because there's an issue from the administration, staff, then okay, give us the reason why you didn't. That's it. I'm supportive of it because that's the way I read it, unless there was a different intent, Commissioner.
No, that's the intent. And listen, there is, you can play out a scenario that has gamemanship, right? So let's say that you provide a price and now it takes 8 months to negotiate. How very convenient that at the 8-month point, you can say that now it costs more. Right? So you can see how it's a never ending loop, right? So what we're trying to do is reduce that and make it easier for staff to negotiate. And look, it cuts both ways. I'm not just saying that the responder can add terms. I'm saying that staff can add terms because that's happened too. There have been some agreements where, and we've all gotten those calls, that after the fact, they add a bunch of terms on. So, the material terms are what the material terms are. And I would love to have your support on this item.
I'm supportive, and I just point out one other thing to staff. Control the controllables. We can only control what we do. In the end, the award comes from this county to whoever, whatever entity it is. If this entity or this company has the tendency to, an example of Commissioner Regalado, wait 8 months or delay the process, then you know who you're doing business with. So, I hope when we come out of this, we're going to have some clear timelines when this committee finishes its job and we go to the full body at the end of the process, and we'll be able to have those timelines. So it's a clear message, that time is of the essence for us, because that is unfortunately what has been occurring in many instances where they come back with a different price. So I'm supportive of it. So
I'll just move it. I'll just move it because we went back and forth on a few things, but I'll work with staff before it goes to the full board.
Did you have an amendment on this?
No, because we went back and forth on how to do it for complex. So
I think the language covers it right now. If you want to be more specific in the future, we can always come back with an amendment. But I think the language, at least maybe the attorneys, am I missing something? Because the language that I see that says directing the county mayor's designee to provide justifications why it is in the best interest if it.
I'll tell you, the only thing that we're looking at is in section 2, adding no terms that materially alter the original RFP or the vendor's original proposal shall be negotiated or incorporated in the final contract. So that's what I was looking at adding, because my issue is that I don't want to add material terms.
Okay. But
Yeah, so that's my amendment to section 2.
Add that now? Or
Yes, I'll add that now.
Are you guys clear on that?
Yeah,
Is there any problem with that? Any objection? Okay.
thank you.
Okay, as a move as amended by Commissioner Cabrera.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Regalado. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, now we're coming up to the discussion items, correct, Madam Attorney?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're going to have a little shift because we're still going to call up Namida because I like saying her name. But we're going to shift the order where I think Lori Johnson will go first, but I'll call up Namida first to introduce Lori for small business development. Then we'll go to strategic procurement, and then Lourdes and RER Why is everybody sitting so far away, Lourdes? You can all come up. It doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna. There's no double secret probation or anything like that that you'll be on.
Y'all feel loved.
It is the Get Committee, but we're not here to get gotcha. Like, it's just the acronym. So, go ahead now.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm personally grateful for this opportunity to present here today. My team and I are committed to the Mayor's WISE 305 program, and we took this opportunity to showcase you the challenges that we have today and what are the opportunities to make sure our processes can be streamlined and we can be more effective in delivery of our service. I'm sure you have seen the mid-year budget adjustment, which includes the Mayor's announcement to merge Small Business Division with the Strategic Procurement Department. And we are excited about that partnership and merger. And together, I think with that merger, we will be bringing you a lot of opportunities to streamline, be efficient, be effective, and make sure our contracts are done in a timely manner. So I would like to introduce Ms. Lori Johnson here from the Office of Small Business Development to share and present some key facts and programs that are managed by our Office of Small Business Development. As she and I work together with her team and my team, I'll be relying heavily on Ms. Johnson to use her unique skills and knowledge to make sure this is a successful venture. So I'll turn it over to her. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. And Ms. Johnson, welcome.
Thank you.
We've got a clock. We're going to put 7 minutes, but we'll be a little bit lenient if you need to finish, because this is important to us. But you'll hear the buzzer since it's, March Madness, NCAA. If it gets to that point, then we'll determine, but welcome, first of all, and look forward to your presentation. So go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, committee members. Again, my name is Lori Johnson. I'm a chief with Small Business Development. It is also my pleasure to share with you some of our highlights of small business development. The Office of Small Business Development was established in 1984 to promote the economic growth of small and local businesses in Miami-Dade County. The office was tasked with ensuring opportunities were available for participation on county contracts for construction, architect, engineering, and procurement projects. Some of our primary functions. First, we recruit our local businesses to ensure that they're ready, able, and willing to perform on county contracts. In addition, we conduct certification of those local businesses to ensure that they're eligible to participate in the program. The small business program is race and gender neutral. SBD, or Small Business Development, is also responsible for certifying FDOT, DBE, and FAA, ACDBE participants. And I know we use a lot of acronyms, so I'd like to say the Florida Department of Transportation Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program and the Federal Aviation Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business Program. The average application we receive monthly is about 110. Currently, we have 1,700 firms certified in the program. Many of those firms have multiple certifications. We conduct project review and analysis on all county projects to determine opportunities for the small and local businesses. Projects awarded with a small business measure are also monitored for compliance to ensure that the measures applied are achieved, in addition to employees being paid responsible or living wages. Our business outreach section assists with obtaining or assisting firms with obtaining capital funds, training, technical assistance, And in addition to that, also bonding and financial assistance. Annually, SPD hosts and participate in various workshops with strategic procurement team or other municipalities and the various chambers to recruit and mentor firms who are interested in doing business with Miami-Dade County. Fiscal year 23-24, SPD reviewed over 2,000 plus projects to apply small business measures. SPD is also the administrator for the miscellaneous construction contract and the equitable distribution contract. Both of them are pool contracts, one for construction and the other for architectural and engineers. On the screen, you would see that 850 contracts were awarded using the expedited contract program, which is the miscellaneous construction program. The 850 projects awarded, valued at $265 million, were awarded under the miscellaneous construction program, benefiting your districts individually and collectively. Each year, we look at what we're doing based on the approved 5-year capital improvement plan to identify those projects available for small businesses. I would like to take this opportunity to explain something that I think is very important to you, as well as the administration. It is a fundamental policy of the administration to review our capital program plan approved by this board on an annual basis to determine opportunities for our local firms. The mayor's commitment to the small business program is not just because we were able to spend $265 million with our small business community in construction, but because each dollar spent has a multiplier effect in the small business community. It is estimated that 2.23 multiplier. Well, let me go back a minute. Let me explain what the multiplier means. What that means is that every dollar spent in the community has a multiplier, meaning it recycles in that community and it impacts the local economy. It is estimated that the multiplier is 2.23%. And as you can see also on the screen, besides it being multiplying in the community, it creates jobs. You have salary increases for employees, boosting the local economy, and most of all, infrastructure growth. And that concludes my presentation. 30 minutes on the clock if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you very much. And I think now we're going to open it up to questions. I have just a couple, unless Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, you want to go ahead and start.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a quick question for those that may be watching. I love to see that there are over 1,700 certified firms, and then you put the important asterisk at the bottom that a lot of those firms are certified multiple times, which is fantastic. But for a small business that may be watching or is interested in becoming certified in any one of these areas, where would they go to start that process? Is there a website? Is there a phone number? Where does someone that is a small business owner within our community start to become certified within Miami-Dade County?
The certification process is online. However, we understand that not all of our businesses are computer savvy, so we have a dedicated staff that if they contact the office, someone will meet with them individually and walk them through the process and provide them the tools that they need to complete the certification process.
And what is that website? Where's the online destination that one would go to in order to begin the process to try and become certified in one of these areas?
Miami-Dade.gov, Small Business Development, and it has a detailed breakdown of the various programs and the eligibility requirements.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Regalado?
Thank you. So in my past life as a school board member, I spent 4 years dealing with the disparity study and our capital program. So I really enjoy your presentation. It brings back a lot of those conversations. One of the things that we have always found that stands in the way of small businesses being able to do work for the county is responding to the RFP process, right? Because one of the things that I found at the school board, and that obviously plays out here too, is when we talk about doing business with the county, it sounds like a great idea, except that takes time, and that time costs money, right? And that time requires a certain expertise. So you may not have the accountant or the attorney or the access to QuickBooks or the ability to answer some of these questions, right? So it's great when we sit up here and we're like, oh, we want small businesses to do this work, but at the same time, they don't have the infrastructure. So one of the things that we did at the school board, which I know that we do here, is to pair them up with other businesses. And I think that's important to explain to folks because, they think, well, but you have these small businesses. Why are they paired up with these other companies? Why don't they get the contract if they're the ones that are quote unquote doing the work, right? So this comes up a lot. Specifically in the construction piece. And the reason is that while they may be doing some of the work, they do not have the infrastructure to participate at this level and provide the county with all the information that the county needs. And I know that you all do a lot of outreach on that, but I think it's important to mention because if there are people that are that have small businesses, and I always explain it to them, they say, well, I want to do the work myself. I don't want to be paired up with someone. And then you have to have that difficult conversation where like, actually, you can't meet our metrics, right? We are going to require all these things of you and you just don't have the infrastructure to do it. And that's why we pair you up. So I think that point needs to be clarified. But the second point is to when and how we pay. So if we can just touch on that, because I think that's another reason that we pair people up, because there are businesses that can wait 6 months for the county to pay you. Most small businesses cannot. And that's another reason why we do the pairing. If you could please speak to how folks get paid, because at the end of the day, once you get through the application, the number one question for the last, I started doing this in 2010, is when do I get paid? How often do I get paid? When do my folks get paid? If you can speak to the payment piece.
In all of our programs, we have language that speaks to prompt payment. We have dedicated staff that work with not just the firms who are awarded these contracts, but also intervene with the capital departments specifically for construction to ensure that prompt payment process is done. But let me explain also, one of the things that we have experienced, and you made a good point in your intro, is that some firms do not have the infrastructure. They do not have that back room of an accountant or an attorney or someone to help them through the process. So we offer those services. Once a project is awarded to a firm, we try to meet with that company so they understand the payment process, the invoicing process, and what is needed to submit a proper invoice. That's number one. Second, we also meet with the department to ensure that firm who is a small business is identified in their system that would prompt the invoice turnaround time for 14 days. In the event, and I'm not going to tell you that every department is consistent in paying 14 days. However, on those cases where payments are not being made, again, we intervene. 9 times out of 10, there's a problem. The invoice is incomplete, something is not missing, or even some companies front load. What that means is that they want to invoice for work that hasn't been completed. So we have a team that works with not only the contractors or the department, but we also try to educate them as best as we can prior to signing on the dotted line and even after they do, because again, some of our businesses have turnovers where individuals who probably was trained is no longer there, so we have to retrain them. So it is a very busy deal, but also I want to address, we have a mentor protege program where firms who are new in whatever field they're in, we try to pair them up with a larger company. And that has been successful as well.
And I'm glad you mentioned the front loading and the invoice problem, because 9 times out of 10, it's an invoice problem, right?
Yes.
They're trying to invoice us for work that hasn't been done yet, or for products that haven't been delivered yet. And I get it. They have bills. They want to pay them, right? And they're trying to get out ahead of the time, right? That they have to wait to get that payment. The other thing I wanted to ask is, when we talk about the procurement process, in the same way that a lot of these firms don't have the back of house to do the invoice, a lot of them don't have the back of house expertise to look into the future and tell us how much they will charge for a service or for a good also, right? So there's that issue too. That's a skill set. And you get that skill set with experience. And that's another reason why pairing them up, right? So they get like a different perspective where they start seeing, okay, well, this is what it costs me this month, but maybe in the summer it'll cost me less. And then maybe towards the end of the year, because labor costs go up because demand is up, it'll cost me more. So, in a lot of these areas, it isn't the same throughout the year. So they go learning from those relationships so they can start projecting out and eventually apply and be able to do that work. So thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for the presentation. And I've got a couple of questions and I see, going back a second to something Commissioner Regalado talked about, do you have a timing or payment of to these small businesses as a metric actually that you track? Or is this just something that you have as a standard?
It's a standard. Unfortunately, small business don't make payments. It's made by the capital departments or procurement departments. But we do request the firms to submit to us the notices of when the invoices is submitted so that we can follow up to ensure on a monthly basis we receive documentation from our finance department on invoices that was pending for a certain period of time, for the most part, anything over 30 days. And so those are some of the tracking that we do, but that is contingent on another system.
Okay, I'm a big metrics person, and I think that as we move forward, it's a lot easier if you're able to, and that doesn't mean if you don't do it in 14 days that something, necessarily was done wrong. It's just we need to be able to track that. If we're looking at it, which is going to get to the last question I'm going to ask you. And let me go ahead and nominate. You wanted to add something?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for recognizing, Chairman. There is a report that the administration produces, I'm not sure the frequency, where it shows us how promptly we pay to the vendors. I'm not sure whether it's capturing 14 days or 30 days. 14 days is for the small businesses, but we'll be happy to look at that report. If it's already being captured, the number of days, then we're already addressing it.
That's great. But, as we move forward, hopefully, one of the goals would be that the metrics that we have will be available to the administration and also to the legislative body to be able to see. I think that one of the things, I'm speaking for myself, but many times I'm a visual person. So when I can see, and again, I want to reiterate that this is not a matter of, there may be a valid reason why for a small business, which it has a greater impact than a large business, some of them can wait it out for a while. But the small ones, it can have a great impact on them. I think it's critical to be able to have that as a metric, an aspirational goal to try to do as well as we can with that. My second question would be about something also that that was mentioned before by Commissioner Regalado, and I think, you mentioned it also in an example you gave. What are we doing about redundancies within the department? In other words, if person X is not there for a reason Y, is there anybody else who's been cross-trained and taking care of that aspect of it, so we don't miss a beat? Or is that something that is beyond you just haven't, do you do it or do you not do it? Maybe you do it already and I don't even know.
Cross-training in small business development, or are you speaking about the individual department?
Individual departments. I think that the most, you gave an example of somebody may be out of work, et cetera, when we were talking earlier on one of the prior items, there was an example given that somebody might be out because they're pregnant, et cetera. One of the big problems sometimes is if somebody's out and of course the person can't be cross-trained in everything else the other person does, because that might not be their responsibility. But to have some sort of redundancy so it doesn't really slow the system down if there is someone who leaves, someone who's out, et cetera. And I think you gave an example of, there might be some instances where somebody's out. Do we have any protocol on, having people?
I can't speak directly to the departments in reference to the payment process, but I can say based on SPD's following up when a payment is delayed or we get a complaint from a contractor, that there's usually multiple persons that review invoices, and so if one person is out, someone knows what is going on and is able to respond. So it's just not one person dedicated only to review an invoice.
My last question to you would be this, and it's been a great presentation, but I'd ask you one question. If I were to ask you what is the one thing that would make your department more efficient as you stand here today before us, what would that be?
Staff?
Oh, that's okay. Okay, that's the standard answer. But okay, let's eliminate that. Question number 2. With the exception of staff, is there anything else that stands out to you that would make your department more efficient?
Well, definitely, in all computer systems, as we transition to whether it's putting all of our contracts in forms, every system there's some glitch, and so we're glitches. I'm sorry, but we're constantly looking at paying closer attention at the systems that we're using to make sure that we identify those gaps and address it timely instead of waiting for an event or issue to occur. So it's being more proactive in monitoring our systems of record, whether it is in forms or whether it is B2G for SPD or whatever systems we're using to process, whether it's applications or payments. We're consistently monitoring those systems to make sure that if there are any gaps, we're addressing them timely.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, do you have any questions? All right. Thank you very much. And the last one was not a trick question. Everybody else is going to get it at the same time, too. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on now. Namada, I think now it's your turn, right? You're going to
Oh, I'm so excited.
lead us on strategic procurement.
Yes. Well, I want to start by, actually, this is perfect timing because this March is procurement month. And we celebrate procurement professionals all across the nation. And I have some of my leadership team here. My staff is up there. But there are county professionals all across that do day in, day out. They are working on procurements and contracts, but never get credit. So I'm going to use yesterday's example of a great deal for Port of Miami and aviation. They got kudos, but not my staff who worked on the deal.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Namada, the entire procurement staff. That was my fault. It's an extraordinary deal, and I do apologize for not recognizing your team at that time.
Thank you, though. But that's just, they're unsung heroes all across in the county, that every time there's a ribbon cutting, I am always thinking, everybody's cutting the ribbon, but who actually worked on that deal? Who actually worked on the PO? Who actually did this? So I just keep that in mind because they don't get the credit. So I want to make sure they're acknowledged and they get it. So thank you so much for the opportunity here. My staff and I worked on on this presentation to present you the challenges and delays that are in the procurement process. Consistent with Mayor's WISE 305 program, we are looking at internal processes as well as legislative things that we need to change. And we reviewed our internal requirements, legislative requirements, identified the challenges and delay. We are exploring opportunities to improve the processes, throw out some of the processes, and monitor them. And some of the work we have already started, and for some of the work we will come back to you for sponsorship or changes. I know, Chairman, you like the numbers and the metrics. I want to give you a very quick high-level overview of the metrics. So the data that I have here is the active contracts that my team is responsible is 1,065, and the pools that we manage are 204. The value of those active contracts and pool is $12.2 billion. The registered vendors that we have is 12,000. My team is responsible for registering all the vendors in the county. Just to give you a snapshot of 2024, the number of agenda items that my team worked on and brought here and were successfully adopted by you were 134. The value of those items were $2.5 billion, and I'll tell you why this is important in the end. The county's annual spend on contracts is about $2.9 billion. They're all in 2024, there were 338 contracts that were awarded by the county, and the modifications of those contracts as managed were 1,825. As you know, we have Procurement Training Academy and the Vendor Training Academy that were launched under the mayor in 2023. Under the Procurement Academy, we conducted 127 trainings for all procurement professionals within the county, and sometimes we have requests from outside jurisdictions like states or cities, hey, can we take advantage of your trainings? We also do conduct trainings for vendors, in that the number of trainings for 2024 were 81. What do we do? And there's always this question, what does central procurement do, and what are departments responsible for? So my team is responsible for managing the solicitation process, negotiations, and establishing the contracts. There are multiple methods of procurements that we use, and the competitive ones are listed here. I'm not going to go into read, but it's invitation to bid, the RFPs, the qualification process, piggybacking, notice to professional consultants, which are the RFPs to hire architects and engineers, requests for design build, which are the RFPs to get a design build contract, public-private partnership. We also do bid waivers, which I know you don't like, bid waivers, legacies, designated purchases. We do manage the unsolicited proposal process for the county. In addition to that, running the Procurement Training Academy, Vendor Training Academy, vendor registration, and providing the support for the supply chain modules of the Inform systems. So that's what my department does, my team does. What do departments do? Because they all have procurement professionals too. They're responsible for doing the bidding under the pools. They do work closely with the Office of Small Business Development for the EDP program, which is to hire architects and engineers under a certain dollar threshold. They work on journal construction contracts that are the low bid construction contracts, whether they're under the MCC program or outside the MCC program. They are responsible for declaring the emergency. Also, the big part is no matter who does the procurement, they're responsible for developing the scope of work, as we discussed earlier today. And in the end, no matter who does the procurement process, once the contract is in place, they're responsible for doing the contract management. So a little bit of understanding in terms of what do departments handle and what do we do. The big legislative binder that I want to show you, and the reason I want to show you that is it has 209 pieces of legislation that are adopted by the board, and they're here. These binders include state, federal, and local legislation. So the county here adopted 209 pieces of legislation that impact my procurement processes. So the reason I want to share that is because when everybody says procurement takes 20 years, which was discussed yesterday, here, some of the reasons are here. So that's 209 pieces of legislation that are adopted here. And then on the next page, on the next slide, I'll tell you the federal legislative requirements are 57, and the state legislative requirements are 52. So when you combine all of that, yes, we want to make sure we follow the rules that are adopted by the board, that are adopted by the federal and the state government, so we are in compliance, and hence some of the complexity. But that doesn't mean that we are going to recommend to you take out all of these rules that you have in place, because that would be irresponsible. A lot of the rules and regulations that are in place are to protect the integrity of the process, so we have to be very careful what we touch and what we don't touch. At the end of the day, we have to make sure the process itself is open, transparent, and fair. And that's why we are proffering some of the recommendations here, and then we would love to work with you to see which are the ones that we need to change. The RFP process, the famous RFP process that takes a long time, comprises of 100 action items or 100 steps, and my staff counted those steps because we have a detailed checklist that they have to follow. And when you start that process from the time that we get the scope of work from the department all the way to the end of the award, we're looking at 100 actions, and some of the actions have multiple sub-steps or sub-actions in there. To get this whole process done, we're looking at 100 actions. It takes a village to do an RFP. These are the entities that we have to coordinate with within the county: the client department, the county attorney's office, small business development, risk management, RER, competitive selection committee, vendors, bidders. I need a little bit more time. Inspector General, ethics, everybody. So it takes a village to do an RFP. We're recommending here, the proposed recommendation here is we want to work to reduce the time that it takes to do an RFP. We do. We're committed to doing that. If you look at, we looked at analyze the data for past 5 years. For under $1 million, because that was the authority of the mayor, we were taking 251 days from the proposal receive date to the award date. We are proposing 90 to 120 days, but that proposal is contingent on us making internal changes, which we are committed to, and bringing some of the changes to the board for adoption. For over $1 million, or in this, we were taking 349 days. That's the board process. We have to come to the board. We're proposing 120 to 150 days. Obviously, this is contingent on changes that we adopt internally and bring here. Some of the changes that I'm listing here are we want to proffer to you, whether amendment to the cone of silence or the protest process, or the formation and performance of selection committee, which the mayor has directed as a key priority to make sure our selection committee appointment process is more streamlined, more effective, and more efficient. Same thing with the architectural engineering process, RFP process, where we are proposing 90 to 120 days up to $5 million, 120 to 150 days for over $5 million. Again, contingent on us working together on those changes. Similar types of changes that for the regular RFP process. And here comes the slide for vendor registration. The vendors, for any vendor to get a contract, to be awarded a contract, for us to make a recommendation for award of a contract, the vendor has to be registered with the county. And that registration includes 13 requirements adopted, approved by the board. And all of these requirements, and there's a notarization and affidavits. So what we want to do is look at these requirements and amend them in a way that we still are making them responsible for certain things that are important to the community, important to the board, but also making sure it's faster or simpler for them. Vendor due diligence, which we call non-responsibility review, which every award that we make, the vendor has to be a responsible vendor. That's one step in the RFP, but includes 23 different checks. Some of these checks are coming from federal, some of these checks are coming from because the board in one simple example, board said, oh, you didn't do Google search. This vendor had a lawsuit somewhere in other jurisdiction, but you didn't do Google search. So what did we do? We added Google search now to figure out, okay, oh, you didn't look at the cases against that company. Okay, so now I added Pacer and Westlaw. So all of these things some of these things are legislatively driven. Some of these things are because we got the feedback from the board. You didn't do this, that's why now I have to do it. And we do need to work internally also to figure out how we can simplify and maybe present to you a model that is more expedient. And the last one is the board memos. The board memos that I told you before that my team worked on 134, but overall, as a county, the administration brought 159 memorandums for award or change order in 2024. So when you look at 159 memorandums, each of them required 42 requirements. You multiply that 42 times 159. I did the math yesterday. I'm not that good. So somewhere around 6,600 requirements that you have to make sure they're correct. So the memo itself becomes a whole process. So we would like to recommend that we work with you to come up with the simplified form that gives you the base information that you're looking for, and you can decide what is important and make it a simpler board memo that comes here for approval and award, and hopefully makes it better. And the next steps are, obviously, we're gonna work internally with the mayor, as well as bring you the recommendations for changes and make sure our staff is continually trained and is following the process. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Namita. I know Commissioner Cohen-Higgins is going to have to leave, so I'm going to start with her, see if you have any questions you'd like to.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Namita. I think we were kind of being somewhat lighthearted before the meeting, that whenever anyone says, I'm really looking forward to giving the presentation, that they're 99% of the time sarcastic. But you're the 0.1% where I know you authentically were excited about giving this presentation, and for good reason, because it allowed you to showcase the depth and the amount of diligence that you and your department have to go through on every single procurement to give us perspective so that we can understand the amount of work that you are doing. And in similar fashion, why it often takes as long as it does. It certainly doesn't take 20 years. But so thank you for that presentation. I know that you have met with me and all of the other commissioners, and you meet with us regularly. I know we're working on things to make this easier for you. But I just want you to know that this presentation has given me even additional perspective than what I had previously. The demonstrative that you had with the binders, with your 2 team members kind of showing us this is a booklet of the rules that you have to follow, I think is very, very impactful. And I see our role as being one that is making your job easier, right? Not more arduous, not more difficult, right? And so once we make your job easier and more efficient, that will inevitably speed up the procurement process. So I am extremely grateful of your presentation. I hope all 13 commissioners take the time to review that presentation. There's a lot of useful data in there. If not, email it to all 13 commissioners so that they can have the benefit of that information. Because again, I think it gives a really great perspective, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. I know other commissioners that are as focused on procurement as we are will also look forward to working with you to really kind of cut this out. It's just too much at this point, right? It's like cutting your nose to spite your face. And I feel like we are at that point when it comes to the amount of legislation that is coming from this board to your department to make things better. We're doing the exact opposite. And so hopefully we're going to start rolling some of that back and kind of building anew. And I look forward to doing that with you. But again, thank you for your incredible work. Thank you to your team for their incredible work. And I couldn't agree with you more. You truly are the unsung heroes. We do ribbon cuttings all the time. We do, applaud projects all the time. And you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing to my attention that procurement is often on the end of a beating stick, not at the pillar of praise, right? Which you absolutely should be. And we look forward to working with you to get to that point. So thank you for the presentation. It was really, really good and really informative, and I found it to be very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins. I know you have to go, so I just wanted to, because I was going to say this at the end, but as the chairman had mentioned at our last meeting, it's probably a good suggestion to have your committee that you chair come and be a part. I think there's only like a two-person difference anyways, right, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd like you to consider, if you can, to maybe for the next presentations, which will be before you leave, it'll be OMB, Internal Compliance, People and Internal Operations Department, inviting the other members of your committee to join us, so they can benefit from that.
Happy to do so, and I know that suggestion came up, I think, at our last BCC meeting, and I am absolutely happy to do that. Whether it's in a formal, whatever that looks like, I'll find out, and I'll make sure that I extend that invitation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Regalado.
Thank you. Thank you, Namita. Great presentation. We've talked a lot about these things. And just the one thing that I want to clarify for the committee members that I think is important. On the state and the federal, it is what it is. If we're using state money, we have to follow their regs. If we're using federal money, we have to follow their regs. If we're using state and federal money, we have to follow their regs. So, I mean, I think the body of work that we're looking at updating is sort of what happens over time. Yes. And look, I think that this system just isn't in the habit of doing that. But I will tell you, in my prior life at the school district, one of the things that they gave the new commissioners is when I came in 2010, I was tasked with a 1-year homework assignment of updating all of our regs, right? So they were just like, here, baby commissioner, knock yourself out. And then I had to bring a report, and we worked with our attorneys, and we went through all of them, and updated it. And I think that the difficult part for you is that we're asking you to do both things. We're asking you to do procurement, right, and get the procurement out that's out there. And then at the same time, we're like, oh, and by the way, Namita, would you like to update your entire system? So thank you for your patience. You have a great team, and I know that everyone wants this to move smoothly. And I think that now that we have a new set of county commissioners, and it's not the ones that were here for like 20 years, it's a little bit easier because unfortunately people get like sunk costs, and they brought the item. So because they brought the item 10 years ago, they might not want to sunset it, but I think this is a different situation. That happens a little bit. But I am of the belief that if it's working, great. If it's not working, let's go. And technology has changed. So a lot of these requirements are requirements that you had, when different systems were not available. So looking forward to working with you on that to update it and make your life a little bit easier.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, Namita, let me just say, first of all, that you are right, and none of us, and I've said this over and over, none of the elected officials really could succeed without the team concept. So it's very important that we recognize that, and I don't think at any point has that not been the intent. I'm not going to speak for the rest of my colleagues, but I think they do feel that way, and everybody acknowledges, that there is no me in team. So I think that having said that, as you know, at least in my personal opinion, this is one of the areas that we definitely need to improve in. And I'd rather be frank than have you, hear it from somebody else. So, and by the way, if Commissioner Regalado had I been on the school board at the time and been the chair, I would have told you not a year, 6 months. So it would have been a little bit quicker. But anyways, let me start by this. And I see that that's a great example you gave us about the regulations. But I'm going to go back to something I mentioned, before when we were talking earlier today, which is control the controllables. Of the list you gave us of 209 different requirements, which is substantial, and I think that is clear. What I think the home rule charter, the code sections, the resolutions, vendor registration, the parts that we control, obviously, are the ones that we can improve. I don't think this commission, in part because of what Commissioner Regalado correctly said, it makes no sense to have, what did you say here? There's 66 resolutions. That in itself is incredibly, the cleaning up of that It's very onerous. And obviously, cleaning that up is probably one of the things we need to do during this process. I don't think you're going to get much resistance, I hope, because some of these things have probably been around. Some of them may be redundant, actually. And then others of them, may not even be applicable if you really look at it. Obviously, we have, on the federal and the state side, that's a little bit different because there are certain requirements. So I would tell you that would be one of the places that it's important for us to start. On your RFP steps, you have a checklist, right, of these 100 steps?
Yes,
Okay. Is there a way we can get a copy of that checklist?
absolutely.
Okay. Because, there was a book called The Checklist Manifesto, which was written by a surgeon, and it actually, surgeons, when they go in and do brain surgery, they really got to be prepared and they can't remember everything. So they checklist the whole book with the concept was you could apply this to other things in other professions and other parts of life. But obviously, 100 seems like a lot, I'll be honest with you. So I'd like to look at that because I just think that it's something. The post-award part, by the way, and this might be more of a question that I don't need you to answer today, but I need you to think about it. In the post-award part, there's always a process, legal process, of the potential for somebody to appeal that bid. But what I have noticed is that in some instances, when somebody doesn't want to get to that point, they take a step, send you a letter before the process is finalized, and then we go back to the beginning of the process. Or we have a new starting line. That shouldn't happen. I think that we need to look into how we also streamline that. And that may be, obviously we have to, there's a legal process that has to be followed and people have certain rights. But I've noticed, at least in my experience, even before I got up here on this dais, that is something that is all too common. So on the checklist, I'm glad you're providing the fact that there's 100 steps. I consider that if we can do something to make it more efficient and effective, I think it's critical to improve it. Now, on the it takes a village concept of it, which it does, one of the big beefs that I've always had with traditional government has been, and my friends that are here that were in Doral are going to shudder when they hear this, is the siloing of everything that's being done, and then from a department to another department, and looking at the steps that you have there. I guess there's 3 or 4 or 5, like 8 departments, right? Minimum is what. There's probably more, but client departments. So it's you're looking at actually not 8. You're talking about 16. So if you include us, so let's exclude the Board of County Commissioners, the final part of the legislative body. Do you have, or does anybody have, any metrics on the time it takes to go through all these departments to get out a request for proposal? Is there a way to monitor that at this time, or is it just, hey, how long is it taking you? Oh, it's over in small business development. It'll be there for 14 days, because our task includes the word efficiency. And I'm starting to sound like Commissioner Regalado. I got to stop saying but anyways, the problem.
It's contagious.
It's contagious. The problem is if somebody or one department maximizes that time, and then it goes through 6, 7, 8 different departments, then it really does extend the process. If you have an exchange of if you have a way to get all this information done as efficiently as possible, you could really cut a lot of time. Do you have any metrics right now on time on this, or is there any metric on how long should it take? Obviously there is, because your last slide, which we're going to talk about in a second, I'm going to applaud you on that one, does have clarity on time. So you're definitely tracking it. But the question is, as you're tracking it, are you exchanging that information with all the proper departments?
we're tracking the time from the start to the end or from proposal date to the end, but not so much, okay, if I have the RFP is on the street and I need, let's say, I'm going to use county attorney, they're here, for them to look at something, I'm not tracking the time back and forth between them, or I'm not tracking the time back and forth between any other agency that we're working with, because our systems are not built like that. Unless someone does manually, then it becomes onerous to track. And it's not just us. You're not going to find a system out there that tracks the flow and the time unless the system was built on the very specific requirements, which here, anywhere, they change. So we're tracking the time from the time either it's the RFP started or the proposals received to all the way till the end, and the generally it seems that the procurement takes too long. But it includes everything in there, other parties that are responsible too.
Okay, I'm going to come back a second. I'm Commissioner Regalado.
Mr. Chair, so it's like a bus, right? So if the first person gets on the bus 5 minutes late, then the next pickup is 5 minutes late, and if that person is 5 minutes late, then the third pickup is 10 minutes late, right? So that's what happens. It's like permitting, right? Like there's a back and forth, right? So depending on how many delays they start mounting up, and that was my point earlier about the accountability. It's very easy to say within a 2-year period, but if you have 4 departments and everyone is finger pointing and they're like, well, you were 4 days late and you were 10 days late and you were a month late and you didn't write the scope right, there's no way to know kind of where it went sideways. And I think, we're both attorneys, so we're used to accountability systems based on deadlines, right? But we're also trained to input our time and to keep track of our time, which is a skill set that attorneys have the bad habit of pushing on other professionals that do not account for their time the same way. So we'll write an email and we're thinking that was a point too, right? But most people, that's not normal. That's not like a normal mind frame. We're just trained like that from a very young age. So we have a different view of time. But I think, the chairman's point is well taken. How do we capture that, right? Without creating a system that makes it even more complicated to get things done, right? And unfortunately, in your case, unlike a permit, you can't have 5 people reviewing in real time, right? Because the thing is very different. The thing goes changing. So it's kind of like us with a legal document. We're used to just like, it's a tennis match, right? And it's like, I give it to opposing counsel gives it to me. Namita has like 10 people and they're all going, back and forth on the thing. So I think maybe the solution, as bizarre as it seems, is the way that the document is shared, like a document review system, right? That captures kind of who's doing what, where, because that exists. But again, that gives you one more thing, right? That now you have to create. But then you can see like who logged in, who put in what, did they finish their piece, and are they done and are they out? But I think that's too complex for what you have going on here. But you can see once you tackle kind of the low hanging fruit here, you can have a document system that kind of makes sure that everybody puts in their like input and checks off that they've reviewed and they've approved. And I think that would help. But that's, again, one more thing. We're still dealing with poor Lourdes and digitizing her permit. So like we're not going to Mars today, but just something to think about.
We're going to work on that. So, but listen, let me, I understand, and that obviously the way that I see it, and yesterday I had an opportunity to meet with a company called Quantum 16 that I believe is going to meet with the administration. And, some of the things that have been done in a government similar to this size, which is Cook County, Illinois, Chicago, are some of the things I think we need to look at. I think for you as a director, it's important to have that understanding. So for you even to evaluate the ability to, meet your goals and your metrics. When I look at the next page, which I applaud you for this extremely ambitious goal of going from 251 days to 90 to 120, and up to 1 million and over 1 million, again, going from 349 days to 120 to 150. And and I know that there's some examples that while that might be the average or the median, it's really something that's been a little bit higher in other instances. And I just think that's too much. I'll be honest with you. And I'm going to give you I think I've given you privately, but I'm going to give it here publicly, the example of, one of my experiences as a lawyer with the procurement department, where unfortunately, came back 2 or 3 times. The same person still won the award, but what should have taken 6 months took 2.5 years. Again, I think technology, as Commissioner Regalado has said, is very different today than what was even there 5 years ago. I think we need to create a system where the administration, you who are the boots on the ground that do things and make this government run day to day, can really try to be as efficient as possible. I can't see how you can do that if you don't have a way to monitor some of these things. I really can't, because I think you've got too many contracts. I know that you have to have the ability to have some technological aspect to make to this process, which will make it more efficient. I know you want it, which is okay, and maybe I'm setting you up for my last question, but I think that procurement, unfortunately, you're not the only department. Lourdes is right behind you. She's going to hear this from me too, so don't feel bad. There are a couple of departments that certainly I think most of us get consistent queries about. Okay, and I think that hopefully we can do something to really help you. But it all depends, and you said it correctly, and I said it at the first meeting. Families have a culture, governments have a culture, sports teams have a culture, countries have a culture, states have a culture, and counties have a culture. It requires a change in culture. I know it's difficult because, as I've mentioned before from this dais, the benefit of having a new commission, or for want of a better term, a new commission, a whole new set of commissioners, is that we have a limited amount of time to try to make a difference, which I think is a good thing. The flip side of that is, if you really wanted to kind of wait us out, and I've seen this happen in Tallahassee, sometimes the bureaucracy can. So hopefully that's not the case. Your goals are great. I'm all in on that. But I do think we need to make sure, and again, going back to the first comment, there's no reason why we can't look at all these 200 and some odd different 66 resolutions. It's just way too many. That is like that. I'm sure you can condense that into 10% of that. Now, my final question would be the same I asked before, Ms. Johnson, which is, if there were just one, I know you might have 20, but if you had one that would be your greatest suggestion to make the procurement process more efficient, what would that be?
Commissioner, just allow us
Namita. We should just clone her.
No,
We just need more Namita.
not counting cloning.
just allow us to work with you to make the recommendations on how we can streamline. Allow us to look at those legislative requirements, and we'll bring you the recommendations, and that's all we need. Technology, yes, it's aspirational. The systems are not out there that can work with the processes that we have. So we got to change our process first and make the process lean process, and then we probably can look into technology. But I think my main recommendation would be to look at these legislative requirements that we have today, and let's just try to see where we can amend, change without impacting the integrity of the whole process.
Okay, now that I'm glad you're being frank about that. Now I'm gonna be very frank in your direction, and to my colleagues. There are 13 of us. You speak to all of us, I would presume, at different times and in different ways. The only thing I ask of you is to be very frank when you get to that. And if we want to get to a place where we want to be, it's going to require that you be very frank with all of us.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as I said in the first meeting too, if any of us have any sacred cows, then this process is not going to work, even from the legislative side. So I would ask you, you know, to be very honest as you
I am.
proffer these changes. I'm not saying you're not. I just understand the process, and I understand the pressure you get when somebody tells you, well, I don't like that. Well, it's okay if 6 don't like it and 7 do if it improves the process. So I just ask you to be very honest and frank about that when you get there.
Absolutely.
So, because you said before, and correctly so, that this is a team concept. Well, if one presumes that the legislative body is part of this team, which I do, then I think that it's very important that you not have any fear of bringing up some of these ideas. I'm going to speak for myself, but I have no problem with you disagreeing with me. We can discuss it and debate it, et cetera. But, and you know, I like people when they disagree with me because sometimes they have better ideas. So I hope you remember that as we try to change this culture, because it's too easy to slip back into keeping what we're doing because everybody's been doing it the same way. So, all right, thank you. And now we go to my second favorite, or maybe favorite, department to make suggestions to. The Lord has come on up. We're going to talk about RER permitting, RER Durham presentations.
Just want to put in for my attendance award again.
Yes, yes. This one is, you're going to get a special recognition from District 12. I just want to be clear on that. So
Thank you.
I might do that. Just, you know, it will be.
Always the same people. I'm just saying.
Commissioner Cabrera's still here. He'll be back. So we'll still have a quorum.
Well, thank you. And I just want to start off by saying that your emphasis on efficiency and metrics and looking at numbers, looking at processes, looking at systems is something that in RER, we do that behind the scenes every single day. We do that as a matter of course because we have to, because we have our customers pounding at our door every single day, literally, because, you know, we have an open customer service building, which is our permit center in West Dade, that customers, you know, come every single day to find us. And we are there, and we absolutely gain from them, because they're there in front of us, that very extreme sense of urgency that they have. And we know, and our staff knows, how important it is for us to pay attention to their needs and for that to be an immediate response to that customer. So I just wanted to start with that because it absolutely dictates what we do in the department every single day. So launching right into it, just to give you an overview, my presentation is not so much about what the department does, because I know you're familiar with the fact that we are an agency that deals with regulations around land development in every form that they manifest themselves. And what we're trying to do is foster responsible land development, responsible construction permitting, because ultimately what that does is affect the health and safety of this community. And we really, you know, as much as we like to look at streamlining regulation and you know, perhaps reducing regulation, because so many of the codes that we deal with are accepted nationally, internationally, and have been derived from public health standards. We really do not have as much opportunity to do that. So what we have to do, and what we have focused on for many years, is ensuring that our processes and our evaluations and our structure is set up in a way that we are incredibly fast at turning around, not compromising on safety, not compromising on health standards, but providing that result with the integrity of all of those codes that have been so thoughtfully adopted and presented by professional minds, you know, that work in these fields, so that we can present those as a finished product in the form of the permit to our customer and the end user, which is the resident, the business person, and folks in our community, can walk into a building and not have to think about the status of its safety, its structural integrity, the fact that the water coming out of your pipes is safe to drink, all of those things. We don't want to sacrifice that great knowledge and information. So just to overview again, our customers, homeowners, the development industry, of course, our local business community, cities are our customer too. We, touch any number of entities in the community that have any form of need of a business license, a construction permit. You asked for, I don't know what is. I'm clicking them. I don't know, they keep moving. I'm not sure if it's me hitting the button by accident. So this is just gave you a quick overview because I know you wanted the total staffing, and these numbers reflect what was in our adopted budget. We had 1,284 positions. Some of those do include, you see the column on the left-hand side, we house within the department the Office of Resilience and Economic Development, which those are direct reports to the mayor. But the other three columns are the ones that are the bulk of the staffing and deal with construction permitting and business licensing and land development regulations. So today's presentation focuses, I'm sorry, I keep jumping, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, today's presentation focuses on, your request was our construction permitting division and environmental resource management division. Just as a reminder, within the department, we also have planning, zoning, platting functions. We have our boards and code administration, which I don't know how familiar you are with them, but they actually support all of the municipal building jurisdictions. They support the Board of Rules and Appeals, which is where, if you are aggrieved by the decision of your municipal building official, you can appeal that decision to BORA. They deal with our Unsafe Structures Board. They support our Construction Trades Qualifying Board, which is a licensing agency as well for many the construction trades in our community. We have Consumer and Neighborhood Protection Division, which is our traditional code enforcement, and they also do business licensing. And of course, our administration, which within RER, it serves an extremely important function because we have two areas that are key to the operation of the rest of the department, which is we have an operational assessment unit internally that we use to act almost as an internal audit function. All of our supervisors within our different plan review and inspection areas are tasked with different quality assurance protocols, but we have what I call the checks on the checkers, right, to make sure that we all get overwhelmed with our work, we all get overwhelmed with the day-to-day, and it's always been important to me to make sure that we are supporting our managers by having a third look coming in at those functions. And finally, a big part of what I'm going to talk to you today has to do with our business architecture unit. We have a group of staff that their business every single day is to think about how they can help better support our business unit. They work in conjunction with our ITD department to deploy technology throughout the department because we are a department that has so much activity, so much volume of work, so much pressure in the sense of what I mentioned earlier, need from the development industry, need from our business community for us to be agile with the product that they need from us, which is the authorization to open their doors, to construct, to obtain a license. And so everything we do is with technology supporting it and behind it. And so I'm going to get into this area here where over time, RER has, and this has been going on for many decades, but it's been accelerated, I think, in the last 10 years for sure. We have sought to improve the electronic capture of all development activity by adding new review types to our online permitting system. And the one that drives our building department, we call it Gold Key. It's an in-house, a custom-made system, which frankly we went to because we realized early on that there was not a vendor solution out there for our needs. And we worked with our ITD department in-house to create what has been an incredibly supportive resource. It has increased transparency and information for our customers. It provides also important data to us for management. And our processing times have been absolutely reduced by the implementation of the electronic submittals that system has made possible. Our reviews on Gold Key are all concurrent, which is an incredible time saver for our end customer. And we, of course, and you'll see different graphs throughout the presentation, we use metrics and analytics to improve our service delivery, our efficiency, and to be timely with our processes. We monitor our performance, and every single day, resulting from all of the reports that go through our Gold Key system, I receive in my inbox at 9 a.m. a late plan report. And I know at that moment how everyone is doing. If we're late in any particular trade, if we are late in any particular review, it is all right there at your fingertips, and that is a mailing list that goes to all of the managers in our department that have any involvement with those activities, so that they have at a glance what the activity is, what the volumes are within the department. And I'm going to show you in a minute a view of that. So this slide is just an overview of some of the areas I'm going to get into, so I'll jump into that. As a reminder, the building permit process, even though building permitting itself is construction trades of mechanical, electrical, structural, plumbing, those are not the only things that go into your building permit. The building permit is the culmination of all of the applicable regulations that go into land development, which include departments we work with, water and sewer, fire, the state's Department of Health. Inside of RER, we do have building, but we also, as you know, have DERM, we have zoning, and we have an aspect of public works within our department and housed in our building department in West Dade. Going into the specific activity of Gold Key, you will see here that system, because of the amount of information that goes through it right now, registers 1.6 million activities annually. We capture it's not just plan review that's captured there, we capture invoicing, intake activities, reviews that have to do with enforcement, reviews that have to do with recertification. Every single activity that we've been able to put into Gold Key is captured and reported. It can be timed and tracked, and it is incredibly necessary to us managing a good operation. So in the next, in these bullets give you just a flavor of some of the metrics we have with respect to our permitting activity. So plan review out of those 1.5 million activities is we have 600,000 initial plan reviews, over 400,000 rework reviews. This could be, again, construction permitting. It could also be certificate of use activity, any number of plan reviews that get conducted on that system in the department. In the unincorporated and municipal areas, building permitting only, 350,000 initial reviews, 300,000 rework reviews were registered there. As I said, it's all the specialties listed there. Are many of our teams, because we do have trades and there are specific licenses and credentials that pertain to many of those trades. Our teams will have between 5 to 15 plan reviewers. And there are, in some of these reviews, they have activities that do not pertain strictly to construction permitting. So for example, recertification, our structural and electrical teams, they deal with active construction, but they also deal with reviewing recertification reports. I mentioned certificates of use. Those get reviewed as well through this system. The staff at DERM, water and sewer, fire and zoning, aside from being tasked with construction permitting plan review, they are also tasked with certificate of use reviews, which numbers in the tens of thousands in this community. And our plan review cycles at building on average it's 2 to 3 reviews when there is an actual plan review to finalize a permit approval. Here we total the actual building permits, which was 58,000. A subset of that, which for last year was 11,000, were actually permits that were issued electronically. We have had, everyone's talking about AI, we have had a form of AI in our department for many, many years, which is programmatic reviews for, yes?
One quick question. I'd like to interrupt you but did you say an average of 2 to 3 reviews before finalizing?
To get a final, yeah, you'll do your initial submittal, you'll get your disposition comments, you know, you may have some approvals, you likely have some disapprovals, and so then it would be the second or third submittal that the final permit approval is provided.
Do you track the timeline on that?
Absolutely.
And what's
Let me get to the
average?
next slide. Yes, we do. Okay, so yes, back to, I was talking about the programmatic reviews. 11,000 of those 58,000 building permits are pre-programmed reviews, which is a system that we built many years ago. Again, in-house knowledge is what made this system possible. We take a combination of information from approved products. They are, you put your product into a system, you put your contractor license in, because we need to know that you're a licensed contractor, into the system. You put in dimensions, perhaps roofing is our biggest one, and the system, it's like AI, before people used to say AI, because this has been in place for more than 10 or 15 years. The program itself logically thinks about it and provides the disposition electronically. And we have many contractors who use that. Like I said, 11,000 permits happen that way. We also have permits in that subset that are maybe trade permits, where you are, again, a licensed contractor putting in key information about their products, their own license, locations, and it spits out a permit. And that is a programmatic review that we have had for many, many years. So you talked about tracking our plan reviews. They are incredibly aggressive, and we do meet these standards. We have concurrent electronic review. We've had that for many, many years, and that enables us to have a 5-day review time for residential and a 10-day review time for commercial, 10 business days and 5 business days. That's our goal for residential and commercial permitting. And again, because the different disciplines reviewing, it's deployed concurrently, so everyone enters their disposition, it populates in real time for the customer, and our customers can see that. We have a portal available online. Anyone can search it. You don't necessarily have to have a process number, or you can find information whether you have a submittal or not. Everything is open and accessible and public facing. So we understand that delays greatly impact our customers, and so we have taken a deep dive, and again, we do this, we find ourselves having to do this every day because of the different volumes of work that come into us that the system reports to us on a daily basis. So we know that the metrics that we have for building permitting are a very good indicator of our resource planning. And you're seeing here, and in, like I said, in the other pages, you're seeing many of the different screen views that we can deploy. A lot of this reporting is available to you. You don't have to ask me to generate a report for you. You can go into Gold Key, and there's a tab for reports that you can produce all of this yourself and see all of our building metrics years into the past. And you will see here what you're seeing here are actual volumes and late and pending for the different trades in a given day where this was taken. The next one, this is the top of the late report that comes in at 9 a.m. every morning. And I look at it, my staff knows I look at it, and they look at it too. And we attempt to be agile with our deployment of our resources. Looking at that report, seeing that there's X hundred of plans in the queue in this area, if we can move staff around to assist with reviews, we do that, because the goal is to keep all of the plans on time. I want to talk about staffing because, staffing is absolutely key to performance in RER. Us having consistent staffing is critical. When we have vacancies, we start running late plans. We know we have contracts. We do have a supplemental staff through contracts that we do find ourselves needing to avail ourselves of. And we try to do that proactively because we do not want to run any late plans. And I mentioned earlier, we have professional engineering and specialized development and construction plan reviews. Our staff is responsible for assuring that plans conform with all of these codes that are applicable to construction. And so that staff, we can't just get any staff. We have to have staff that is appropriately trained and credentialed to complete those reviews. And we, as a department, compete directly with the development industry for staff. Whoever is working that construction field tomorrow is going to come work for me, and vice versa. And we are keenly aware of that. So we have to be agile. We are attempting to, and this is not so common, but we're trying to foster it as much as we can. We want to foster expansion of credentialing of our own staff so that we can amplify the use of our existing resources. We want to have our own staff trained to conduct as many reviews as possible. It's not always possible because there's specific trade credentialing that pertains to certain areas. You have to have certain experience, and some of that is governed, not just by local rules, but also by state rules. But we are trying to incentivize multidisciplinary credentialing and training because we know that where we can do that, it helps us to reduce backlogs and accelerate the issuance of construction-related permits. This is, I just wanted to show you a screenshot of Gold Key because this system is incredibly transparent. Our customers have ease in terms of looking at it, realizing what information it is providing them. If you can see it on your, I know you can't see it on the print up there, but if you're seeing it in front of you.
We have copies of it.
You have a copy, yes. So you can see that the disposition is right there. There's a process number, there's a disposition of disapproved is the red, the greens are approved, the yellow means there's usually some kind of information pending. And when you get to, there's another screen where we show you that is also accessible to the customer. You see the name of the staffer that has your plan, you see the time they got it, you see the time it's due out. If there any disposition they have entered, you can click on that colored button and it takes you to the disposition comments. There's also a button next to it that takes you to an appointment system. If you want to ask that person questions, have a meeting with them, there's an email link as well. So we do everything we can, and Gold Key completely enables this to make our staff and our dispositions and comments accessible to the customer. So transparency is key for us. Another area that we've been looking at is, and some of you have asked about this in the past, Commissioner, we work with the Department of Health. They are physically co-located with us at the permit center. Now that we're in the business of doing septic reviews with Commissioner Regalato's ordinance, there's an opportunity there for us to get a delegation from the Department of Health, and we are working on that actively with that staff so that we're hoping that by October 1st, we are going to be able to have their septic reviews delegated to us and incorporated, done by the staff that is presently doing our component of the septic review. And if we can do that, that is an area that has historically had staffing issues. And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to provide an immediate improvement to the development industry by having that delegation provided to us. We also have taken pains to continue to use technology. Many of you know that when COVID happened, we commenced virtual inspections. We did 100% of our inspections virtually when we had the shutdown periods in COVID. Our staff did not stop working. We closed down for 3 days. On a Wednesday, we closed down. By Monday morning, we were open again, everyone at home reviewing plans online. It was instantaneous, and that was thanks to the support of the staff that was in place back then. Many of them are still with us, and with the support of our ITD department that worked continuously to put all of our permit systems, everything that was not yet online, we did it overnight to get that done. So we continued the use of the virtual inspections, and those continue today at a rate of approximately 10% of our total daily volume. And in 2023, we morphed into a creative on-demand inspection, which is actually becoming quite popular. It is a same-day inspection. So a contractor that is on a job can call the department, they can go online and they can request, they join the queue and they can request an inspection. And within half an hour, they have an inspection, a virtual inspection. And that is happening today. We are continuing it. We would like to amplify, we would like to expand that program because, of course, if you're a contractor, when you're on the job site, you want it done right there. You don't want to come back. As much as we give an inspection the next day, you don't want to come back the next day. You just want to be done. So that is something that we are very interested in continuing to expand. I think I skipped something. Okay, so, and morph into different additional areas than where we cover it today. Okay, so this was the screen views that I was talking about earlier, where we are actively adding to our Gold Key Plan system. And this, if you're looking at it in front of you, you can see these are the names of our reviewers. That's what I was mentioning before. That screen view, you can see who has your plan, when they got it, what they're doing with it. Is it approved? Is it disapproved? If it's disapproved, you click and you see the box at the top there that says structural. Those were those disapproval comments. So everything is right there for our customer, fully transparent and accessible. We have implemented, again, because even though we do 5 and 10 days, that's still not fast enough for a lot of our customers. So we have continued to provide expedite options. One of the things we do that is actually free of charge and has been well utilized is our small business and homeowner assistance team. The audience here is your unrepresented type of business, really. We fish them out of our line when we see them. We've trained our staff to look for people who look lost and pluck them out of the lines and get them an appointment with our small business and homeowner team. And what they do is really hold the customer's hand through the process. And a lot of our customers that are, for example, legalizations, those are ones that have been tremendously helped by that homeowners group because they do need that extra assistance. We also, of course, have the paid concierge expedite, which is a 5-day maximum turnaround, even for commercial projects. It's our elite team of reviewers in the sense of being the most experienced. They're generally the most senior, the most experienced, and so they are there for those complex, larger construction projects that choose to pay for that concierge service. And of course, this is the same service that we provide for our affordable housing. Anyone that's affordable housing can avail themselves of that concierge team free of charge. We also have Meet Queue. I mentioned that earlier. Meet Queue is the appointment system at our permit center, and we are branching this into other parts of the department. It's available at Durham, and we are putting it in our zoning floor here as well. In the coming year, we have this appointment system where you go online and you can make an appointment, so you know you're guaranteed to come in. Every day you can have either the supervisor available. On certain days you can make appointments with your plan reviewer themselves, because we try to segregate their time so that it's maximized in terms of their ability to just be able to sit and review plans without interruption. But we have a professional day, which is the day that you can see your actual plan reviewer, and then the rest of the days staff is available, and it's generally the supervisor. And that list is actually a great quality assurance type of instrument, because when someone comes in and they're seeing the supervisor then has the opportunity to see, well, what did this person do? Was the plan disposition correct, incorrect? Did they miss something? Was there something that should have been approved? So that list has not just a service functionality for the customer, but it is also a management tool for us as well. Another screen view of just trends that we have available to us through this Gold Key system. And one of the things that we actually did this year as a result of our watching the trends and seeing what was going on with volumes in certain trades was implement the fast track permit process, which you think of it almost like an administrative process in zoning, right? Where we were able to take certain factors from the plan, information points from the products being used, characteristics of the job, and turn that into an alternative process that then saved time of our plan reviewers, where it's being handled administratively and then confirmed, the quality control is confirmed at the inspection at the job site. One of the moves that we are making,
I didn't put you on the clock, but I do.
You want to put me on the clock? Okay.
No, I won't. But try to go ahead, because I know you got two departments, so two
I'm almost at the second one, because now we're getting into where, a longtime goal of the department has been to ensure that every area, because construction permitting is one area, and we have added to it, but we want to make sure that all areas of our department are implemented, are able to avail themselves of Gold Key. And I know Durham is one of the areas that we have been working to have fully implemented on Gold Key. And so one of this slide is not about Gold Key, it's about a realignment that we made with some of the staff at Durham, but we did it because we realized that you were talking about queries you get. The queries about wastewater issues, which is sewer extensions, wells, grease traps, septic tanks. That is a common question that I know comes to you. It also comes to me. And one of the moves we made just this past month was to relocate the staff that does that, which is about 50 staffers that were located downtown at the OTV building. We have physically moved them to West Dade. And that was intentional. We wanted to co-locate them at the permit center so that there could be improved access to them by our customers, because they have many common, if you need a sewer extension, it's because you've got a building permit going, right? So it only made sense to have that co-location. And we were able to by doing that, we hope to leverage the expertise, again, amplify the training, the versatility of the staff. And we're also supplementing that area with consultants, because we know that there's a need there to have even faster reviews. But, we continue to look for ways to have a more timely permit issuance for those programs, and I'm going to get into the details of what they do in a little bit later. Getting into just some of the things that we have initiatives for in construction permitting, they do extend into Durham and into other areas of RER. It's moving away from our legacy systems. Part of the reason why you get questions about a lot of Durham processes is because they are not visible. They are not transparent. They are not online. And so one of our internal goals has been for a while, and we've been doing it slowly, is moving away from those legacy systems and having the full path implementation in Gold Key for all of the functions associated with building permitting, not just building permitting. And I'm just recapping here some of the things I mentioned before about continuing to use programmatic reviews, implementing AI, going into the delegation of the septic. We've also expanded the use of body-worn cameras within our department. We have them right now for our code enforcement staff, for our consumer protection staff, and we are piloting them for building, and we're going to be piloting them for the rest of Durham as well. So we've got over 100 staffers today that have cameras, and once it's fully implemented, there will be an additional 200. All of the inspection-related staff will have them by the end of this year. I talked about meet queue expansion already, and I gave you some examples of how we were reducing review times. Okay, so now getting into Durham, and I know you're
My favorite.
I'll go faster, but not too fast, so you can ask your questions. So just an overview, again, same issues I'm going to get into in terms of what we do, what's happening today, getting into the transparency of the process, the timeliness of the process, what we're doing to streamline. This slide is just an overview of the many environmental programs that occur at Durham. They do permitting, but they also do many other things, which are captured on that slide. We have environmental policy formulation. They manage stormwater. They have beach renourishment programs, environmental restoration, monitoring, education. There's a host of things that occurs in the department. The one that is the subject of this presentation, of course, though, is the permitting that they do. They are involved in building permitting and construction permitting, but this slide shows you the permits that are issued at Durham that are outside of the construction permit process, in the sense of that they are prerequisites to a building permit. So if you have pollution, if you have a contaminated site that needs remediation, you have to have an approval plan and path, for how you're going to deal with that contamination before you can get a final approval of that building permit. You may need a tree removal permit. You may need an air permit. You may need any number of class permits which deal with things like wetlands, coastal construction, drainage treatments that may be needed, and a lot of our very large projects and our economically significant projects end up needing that type of permit. One of the things I want to point out with respect to Durham and how great Gold Key has been for the part of Durham that is already on Gold Key, which is the part that deals with construction permitting, is that 90% of Durham's plan reviews occur within 48 hours. And those numbers on that slide show you that. Those are the areas that do reviews, again, in conjunction with the building permit process. And those parts of the process at Durham are already transparent to customers. They're able to see their comments, they're able to see their dispositions, they're able to see their reviews, and we have, and that's why implementing Gold Key in the rest of Durham is an urgent priority for this department. It really is. And I am fully confident that once that happens, the phone calls to you about Durham will be drastically reduced, because I get the phone calls myself, and it is about the parts of the process, which is this next slide that I'm just showing you, that are not yet on Gold Key, and they represent less than 10% of the permitting activity at Durham. It is the part that is not transparent, it is not accessible. You cannot go on any website and see what is happening with your plan. A customer who is trying to build a dock is 100% dependent on what their contractor is telling them, which, we all know may or may not be representative of the full, both sides of the story, right? So we know that this is the part of the department that needs improvement. And we gave you some information here just about the fact that, it is unfortunately the large economic development projects that will need a sewer extension, right? Or a site, an infill site that has a golf course, right? That needs arsenic remediation or some kind of remediation. And so they do have to deal with these approvals ahead of being able to finalize their construction permit. So as much as it's a few thousand reviews a year out of the hundreds of thousands that occur, they are significant, and we know we need to fix them. The range of days for these reviews can be, some of them are 5, but it can be up to 30 days, and a lot of these approvals are tied into state regulations. You heard of the shot clock, so they abide by those timeframes as well. But internally in the department, and as we have put, like trees was one that we put into Gold Key, we cut them to half the time, right? And so that's part of our purpose in bringing Gold Key to the parts of the Durham processes that does not yet have it, because right now our staff finds themselves having to go into multiple systems to get the information that they need to complete a plan review. Once we know that they will have Gold Key, that their burden in terms of how they execute the plan review is significantly alleviated, aside from the customer's view and information of what is going on with their process. So that's what I emphasize on this slide, that many Durham construction permit types have not been migrated into Gold Key. What we did during COVID with Durham was we deployed that part of the portal, which you see on that page. That button allows an applicant to submit electronically. You can upload and submit electronically, but behind that submittal, there is not a public-facing, real-time, information outlet for. The plan goes to someone's box, right? And there's no other transparency. And for you to get information, you have to call as a customer or email the staff to find out the status of plans, or perhaps come downtown to our offices, which we really don't have as much traction, foot traffic downtown as we do in West Dade. So it's very difficult for the end customer to validate the status of information independently and seek that status on their own. And we know that that's a fundamental impediment, for our customers. So going back to, I mentioned this earlier, we are working with our ITD department to implement an accelerated 2-year plan to expand systems that are used already for building permitting and the parts of environmental permitting that are online with Gold Key. We are going to expand that into the rest of the DERM reviews with a very aggressive schedule. And like I said, we did do this already for the 100,000 plan reviews that are involved with the building permit process. We did it also for municipal and UMSA certificates of use, which again, that number's in the tens of thousands. Those have already been deployed in Gold Key and have days of turnaround time for the customers. It's those class permits that we began working on. Class 1 and 4 is already under development. We hope to have that finished this year. And the rest of them, which are primarily the drainage 2, 3, 5, and 6 class permits, have begun their analysis this year. We also are going to be tackling the pollution remediation, which is the contaminated sites. That is going to be launching next. Another thing we have done to improve efficiency.
If you could wrap it up like in 2 minutes, because
Yes.
Commissioner Regalato's going to
Okay,
go,
I'm
and
sorry.
then at that point I become Elon Musk, and
Yes.
I can just do whatever.
So you will be seeing before you soon our EQCB exemption item, which is, again, zoning administrative type relief for our customers. I already talked about the organizational realignment that was already made and how we hope that that is going to help improve service for customers. And yes, the last pieces of information here, our work program is to continue to move away from all of these legacy systems. We're going to complete implementation of Gold Key. We're going to continue our evaluation of use of AI, deploy those body cameras. Like I said, we work every day on analytics and monitoring because we have to, because our customers are at our doorstep. And we're going to continue to use our information, which we turn into dashboards that we use, and this is some of them that we use that help us to, again, see in real time what it is that our customers are asking for and need. So again, we try to organize ourselves for success. We act with a sense of urgency, and we want to keep leveraging the experience and expertise that we have in the department to really bring that to the parts that do not yet have that technology backing. And I see you looking at me like you want me to stop. So I am going to stop. Thank you so much for your attention.
I'm going to give, before she goes, I want to give, because I do want to read a statement even after she goes. I wanted to applaud you for the great presentation. You really, that's one thing I always appreciate about you. You will get into the details and do what you got to do. I don't know if Commissioner Regalado had, I'm sure she has a lot of exchanges with your department, but if she has any questions, I would certainly give her the opportunity.
No, I'm good. We talk about these things all the time.
The-
But great presentation. And listen, I love the Germites. They do great work. I mean, obviously, we've been talking about digitizing the permits, and I think that Lourdes is completely right. Once all the permits are digitized, I mean, we're not going to get the complaints that we get. It really is a nature. It's just people can't see it, right? So they can't see it. So then they think that there's some conspiracy. Government is not smart enough to conspire against anyone, but here we are.
I'm just going to say one thing before Commissioner Regalado leaves. I totally agree with you and with her, and we were going to have a motion, but we lost quorum. But we're going to push that on as much as we can, if possible, next week. It's something that she mentioned that I also agree with, that you mentioned, that there's no reason why we can't try to get the Durham aspect also to be part of this program. And I think that's urgent. So I think you will see something next Tuesday. Obviously, there's only 2 of us, so I don't want to get it, we're not going to be able to vote on it, but certainly we can move forward. And I want to thank Commissioner Regalado, because she does get I want to give her a little certificate of attendance award program. And then she can go. I do have just 2 questions for you, which is, what, do you have a lot with municipalities? How is that working? Because, a lot of these grease trap things and, what do we call them, fog and this and that, a lot of times the kind of municipality points back to you guys, how does that work? Because sometimes, and your assistant director, Mr. Rojas, there has heard my spiel since 2005 on, no silos, being able to, but what happens when there's a municipality, because we've been getting a lot of, in particular on grease traps, we've been getting a lot of complaints.
Yes. So, one of the, I don't know if it's the same complaint that I've heard about, but one of the things that we know happens actively in a lot of cities is that they do proactive business tax licensing and enforcement. And so when they find businesses that maybe do not have a business tax, we have been in those situations with Durham that the city puts them on notice that they're not operating legally. They have to get permits with their municipal jurisdiction. And then if they need a construction permit, which unfortunately oftentimes an illegal business or a business that has not, opened with all of its licenses and paperwork will find itself needing a construction permit. And so when that happens, they end up coming to the county for review. And we have seen that on multiple occasions where maybe there was some kind of restaurant or entity operating in a space. It had not been previously approved at the county for that type of use. And so they find themselves, oh, well, now you need to install a grease trap where you didn't have one before. Or, oh, your trap is from 10 years ago and it requires an upgrade or a sizing larger than what it has for the use that you're, the type of use you're trying to put in. And so that lends itself to, then they can't get their permit. Well, if they can't get their permit, then the city doesn't let them open up again because the city ordered them to shut down. So what we have seen, what we do in UMSA is we put people into consent agreements. We have not proactively asked businesses to shut down except in very egregious cases. So unfortunately, I think we're getting stuck in some of the back and forth that happens with a jurisdiction that's enforcing one piece of its puzzle and then triggers the other pieces of the puzzle that then end up becoming, well, now I need to get a plumber, now I need plans, now I need to, buy this infrastructure. But, we do work with those situations. We expedite all of their reviews. We try to get them into consent agreements so that they're able to proceed, and not be harmed by any kind of protracted shutdown.
Yeah, I think the biggest complaint there has been when it's a business that is a small business that usually, for better or worse, signs a lease and then they're stuck in paying for 6 months and they're stuck in a process that may take more. And that's where it becomes a real onerous process. I mean, the bigger entities don't have that problem, but the smaller ones do. So, but I do applaud you for and I commit to you that even though we weren't able to get it, we are going to push it for Tuesday if we can, because I think we all agree with you that if you can fully use the Gold Key program, I think it'll go a long way to improving things across the board. And again, I know that you bear the brunt of a lot of the concerns that we have, and once we talk to the industry, I'm sure there'll be some questions. So a lot of times, I think a lot of times it's a matter of perception of the story we tell. And the reason why I'm so insistent sometimes on metrics and transparency and being able to track things is because that helps you tell your story. And the story you told today is actually a much better story than when people perceive, certainly in the permitting aspect, but even, on the side of environmental resource management. But people need to, there has to be metrics to support that. If not, then, the perception is a different one. And I think that's unfortunately, and I've seen this at the municipal level and I see it here too, which is a much bigger place, that if you don't control that narrative, it'll just be, you'll just get that, you'll just end up with a reputation that maybe shouldn't be the one, and none of us want to be Joan Jett, right? We do want to care about our reputation because we want to be efficient and effective. So I thank you. It's a great presentation, and thank you very much. And the two items that you kind of went through here, we will move them along as expeditiously as possible. Hopefully as soon as when this body meets in its entirety. So thank you very much. I think that there's only one other thing I wanted to do, and Roy, I'm glad you're still here because I just wanted to put a comment on the record that's important. before we finish. The mayor's sent out a memo the other day, commitment to fiscal responsibility and accountability, and I really, I want to thank the mayor for taking these proactive steps to reduce expenses and find efficiencies without affecting services. Because I think, as I said before, and I want you all to know, that it shouldn't be about me or my 12 colleagues, or even just about the mayor. It should be about all of us. It's about, us, not I, we, not me. I believe anyways that direct services are the primary function of local government. So when I see a presentation like today's, I think that's what residents expect from their tax dollars and that they send our way. We're being mindful stewards of their dollars, efficient in our process, and consistent in how we use those dollars in order to maximize what we can provide them. And all the presentations today, but in particular this last one, I think have been indicative of the effort to do that. Nothing in life is ever perfect. If you can just get a little bit better every day, then you're going to get there. I do, though, Roy, and I told the mayor this the other day, that look forward to receiving information regarding the implementation of these measures. I know that we're extending and expanding and using some dollars to try to figure out how to be more efficient, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way that we can do that so the administrative side and the legislative body are pretty much on the same page. I know yesterday's Appropriations Committee, which had some excitement, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins had the suggestion to provide incentives to department directors to achieve these results. I do agree with her with one caveat. I think we need to incentivize this process as we begin to implement these efficiencies. People tell me sometimes, hey, when I complain about the difficulties of being an elected official in the modern world, and every once in a while somebody reminds me and says, hey, but that's what you were elected to do. It was your choice. I think we all need to be cognizant of the fact that incentivizing is important, but we also got to get into the habit of changing that culture, that what's expected is expected. And it should be that way. And we have a rare opportunity for the first time with these additional committees, and particularly this committee, to make an effort to make a change in our culture. It cannot happen by the 13 elected officials here, not even with the mayor. Everybody else has to buy into it. If you don't, it's going to be very difficult for us to make that change. So, efficiency, it has to become a part of our culture. And again, I applaud the mayor for what she's done in the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks, because I think it shows precisely what we mentioned at the first meeting of this committee, that this is not about the administration, it's not about the legislative body, it's not about the great men and women that make this county run day in and day out. It's about all of us trying to do that. And I wanted to put that on the record because with everything that's happening nationally, there's an expectation sometimes that things can happen overnight. They can't, but they can begin to happen if we all buy into changing that culture. Lourdes usually gets to my complaints, whether it's here or in Miami Springs. But this is an example of what I think, is a great story about a department that's really understanding that they've made some great changes to change the culture, but still need to make some other changes to improve that culture. And with that, I want to thank all of you. And again, and I'll be very clear with all my colleagues, whenever we're on this dais all together, it can't be done by the legislative body. Some of the things we heard today, 66 different resolutions, some of that is on us. We need to clean this up along with the administration to make it easier for the people that do this day in and day out. So thank you again. And it was a great. Oh, yes, I got to announce next month's department presentations, just so everybody gets ready. OMB, Internal Compliance Department, People and Internal Operations Department, which is a great acronym, PIOD. So those are the next for the next round. And I really want to thank you all for taking the time and preparing. And I think that the best thing for me is that, all of you understand that we're in this together. And again, as I tell my colleagues, everybody has to buy in, and nobody can have sacred cows. So hopefully we're going on a good path. So, and see, it wasn't that bad, Lourdes. I had 20 questions for you, but no, I'm just kidding. Actually, you did such a good presentation that now I'm left with very few that I can't even ask you some of the questions I was going to ask you. So very commendable and appreciate it. So, and all of the departments did a great presentation. So thank you very much. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of us together and let's improve and make it the best culture possible. Thank you. And with that, we're adjourned.
Someone from your group pull the boat off the trailer and tie it up to the far end of the dock. Once the boat is tied to the dock, move the truck and trailer to the designated parking area. Now you're ready to enjoy your day on the water. If you have a personal watercraft, ensure you have a line in your storage compartment to tie up your vessel. PWCs are prohibited from being launched and left unsecured at the ramp. As your day on the water comes to an end, follow proper procedures for returning to the marina. Pay attention to staff directions. Pull the boat forward and quickly move it to the exit staging area for restrapping and unloading any items. Secure your straps and make your final preparations in the staging lanes away from the boat ramp. For your safety, never unload items from the boat in the boat ramp launch area. Whether you're launching or returning, the Miami-Dade parks, marinas,